Hey everybody, today we're going to focus on the preparatory breath and kind of go through a checklist of things you want to feel for and think about on every inhale before we start to sing. So, first we're going to start with the diaphragm. And so we want to feel like that diaphragm on that inhale just drops and expands low in our body as if that diaphragm is kind of pulling that air into the depths of our lungs. Places that you can focus on for sensations, that upper stomach. So when I drop and I have that inhale come in, diaphragm's expanding, I can feel that upper stomach pop out a little bit. We can think about our ribs. A low expanding feeling in the diaphragm, in the core, in the ribs. Next, in our checklist, we want to think maybe about our jaw releasing with that diaphragm. So diaphragm drops, so does the jaw. The jaw doesn't have to muppet open. We don't need a huge forced opening of the jaw, but we want it to release, and we want it to release in a way that feels like everything is opening and letting go. All right, so jaw release, and that jaw release is going to help that tongue release. So that's next on our checklist. Our tongue should be releasing towards the opening of our mouth, so relaxing against those front bottom teeth as if you're about to drool, just really, really loose. So diaphragm, jaw, tongue, everything just lets go. Okay, and we don't want to think pushing down. We don't want that drop to feel like everything sags or presses down. We just want it to be a release, which leads us to the next thing we should think about in our checklist is maybe a sense of lift, as if on that drop of the diaphragm, release of the jaw, relax of the tongue, the dome of our skull lifts off of this mouth space a little bit. So a sense of weightlessness in that inhale that helps us think about air coming up and over our tongue, that takes the weight off of our tongue, or it takes the effort out of our tongue. We kind of have to trick our tongue into relaxing. So diaphragm drops, jaw releases, tongue relaxes forward, and we have a sense of lift above the tongue in the skull, the dome, hard palate. Okay, so next on the list would be the soft palate. So as we're thinking lift, maybe we're also adding a stretch in the back of the mouth space. So that yawn sensation, where the back of the mouth space really kind of feels like it lifts and stretches as we inhale. That's going to help keep our larynx low. So that's the next aspect of our preparatory checklist. We're going to think about how that yawn helps that larynx, our Adam's apple here, sink and stay stable. Okay, you can put your fingers on your Adam's apple as you inhale and try to find that. Okay, why don't you try that a few times? Kind of go through your checklist, maybe focus on one piece at a time, and then can you put it all together? So we have the diaphragm drop. Okay. Drop and expand in that upper belly and ribs. We have our jaw release, nice and loose. We have our tongue relaxing. We have a sense of lift above that tongue. And then we have that soft palate lift and stretch. And the larynx staying low, a sense of expansion in the airways. Okay, when you try those one at a time, you could try to combine them together in one action. So the action may be of like you just remembered something really amazing. That feeling of surprise, that inhale comes right in, we kind of release, and we have a sense of lift above. Surprise, that idea of surprise kind of helps us have a sense of lift and space in our mouth. Okay, and you can use what works for you, but something similar to that instant inhale where the air just rushes right in and the space is ready to go with a sense of energy, stretchiness, but also openness and release. All right. So let's see if we can find that preparatory breath in a couple ways leading into an exercise. So that's always going to be our beginning, um, ready to go action. Okay. And then we're going to try to hold on to all those good feelings, openness, low diaphragm, lift, as we use our voice in, as we release our air in a sentence. So we're going to say, "Hi, how are you?" in a slow sing-songy way after a preparatory breath. All right. So here's an example. Hi, how are you? Kind of sing-songy. Yes, we sound kind of creepy, but a sing-songy hi, how are you? To just make sure you're holding on to all those good things we found on that preparatory breath, and then holding on to it as we add tone and we use our air. Okay, so one more time, we're going to try our breathing in with a feeling of surprise. Hi, how are you? I imagine my airflow when I go to release my sound. Hi, following a high path in my mouth, kind of climbing up to the heights of that lifted soft palate, clinging to the surface of my hard palate, and then coming out above my tongue. My relaxed tongue is not trying to help me make room for that sound. All right, why don't you try that a couple times? Try it again at a different pitch. Maybe try a lower pitch and then a higher pitch. So a lower pitch might be, "Hi, how are you?" Notice your rib cage. Does everything stay expanded? Hi, how are you? Try it at a higher pitch, taking some notice of tension. If you feel tension as you move higher. Hi, how are you? Breathing in with a sense of height. Hi, how are you? All right, making sure that jaw is loose, tongue is relaxed and loose, and that yawn sensation stays for the duration of the sentence. Let's try that "Hi, how are you" sentence with a little bit more lifted soft palate. So that feeling of a yawn. Some people liken that to Julia Child's voice, so our favorite chef. Hi, how are you? For now, exaggerate. It's going to sound a little bit boomy in the back of the mouth. That's okay. That's going to help keep our throat open, our larynx low, and our air, like everything nice and expanded and stretchy. So try it a couple times at different pitches. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you? If you actually yawn, that's fine. Just use that to help you say the sentence and notice what that really stretchy, open feeling feels like. So the yawn helps us find the space. It also helps us contain our airflow. And that's super important for making easy tone, right? Helps our vocal folds vibrate more efficiently when that air isn't being forced or pressed or pushed against the vocal folds from below. So containing our air from that preparatory inhale, holding on to that feeling of an inhale and a yawn as we say our sentence. All right, so let's see if we can hold on to this preparatory breath with a little bit more breath management in an exercise where we extend the breath even longer. So now we're going to try to count to 30 in a sing-songy voice. And we're going to go preparatory breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You can pause the video, try it a couple times. If you're not quite able to get to 30, you can try, just notice where you're at. Maybe you got to 20, maybe you got to 15. See if you can get past that number you're currently at. And things that are going to help you is trying not to let that air feel like it spills out the front, right? We don't, 1, 2. The breathier your tone is, the less far you're going to get in this exercise, okay? The breathier your tone is, the less resonance we're going to get as we sing. Okay, so trying to contain that air, trying to let it feel like it spins. 1, 2, 3. In the back of our mouth where that yawn is. Okay, we're going to try this on a more singing exercise, a little more singy. We're going to move between oo and o, so these rounded vowels. And we're going to feel like we're sculpting our air. So we're going to start with our preparatory breath. Dropping and expanding in the diaphragm, opening in our airways. Feeling a lift above the tongue and in the dome of our mouth and skull. And then we're going to feel like we are sculptors of air. We don't need to muscle anything. We're just shaping. So this is going to be... And let yourself exaggerate that yawn sensation. For now, we're just opening up the airways in the back, trying to trap that air and resonance in this chamber, in our lungs, as well as this chamber, and not let it spill out. Here we go. I'll do a couple with you, and then I'll go a little higher and let you sing on your own. Here we go. Preparatory breath every time. Contain. Let those oohs and ohs feel very spacious in the back. It's okay if you're out of air at the end. Try to get to the bottom, but no biggie if you need to take another breath. We're going to go a little higher. Drop out if it's a little uncomfortable. Exaggerate the yawn on these higher notes. Last one, drop out, like I said, if it's not comfortable. So we should feel a sense of lots of vertical space, lots of vertical stretching, shaping with our lips, holding back that air, containing that air and rationing it out, kind of feeding. I think of it as we're feeding a trickle of air into this chamber, kind of feeling like it's getting swirling in there. It's kind of getting trapped and swirling in there. And then we let out pure tone. Okay, so we're going to do one more of these between shifting between oo and e. So now we have kind of two very different vowels. Oo is a back, tall, rounded vowel. Okay, tongue is close to the roof of the mouth, but a little bit further back. And e shifts forward, very, very forward in our mouth, very close to the roof of the mouth. And we're going to still focus on containing our air and sculpting that air with as little force or effort as possible. So here's an example. Preparatory breath. So shifting back and forth between oo and e. And we're going to keep our lips close to our oo vowel when we shift to e. One more demo. Up and over. Like a suppressed yawn feeling. Breathe in through our preparatory breath, and then you're kind of going to feel like you're suppressing a yawn. We're going to speed it up. We're going to go up a little bit more and we're going to head back down. We're going to move faster. So how stable can we feel from that preparatory breath all the way to the end of the phrase? So stable, not collapsing, not moving our jaw, chewing our vowels too much. Okay, so we're going to pick up the pace. It'll be a little bit more like... Exaggerate a little bit of that yawn space. Head back down. We're going to head lower. As we do, you might notice that that mouth space doesn't need to be so open. So higher notes, we're going to, these much higher notes up here, we're going to feel like that yawn and the dome lifts off of that tongue a little bit more. We're going to feel a little bit more stretch in the back. And these lower notes, we're going to kind of gather in those notes. So it's going to feel maybe a little bit like the exit for each vowel. The mouth exit is a little bit smaller. So let's try. You can experiment. What does it feel like to be a lot more open? In this range, it might be a little bit wasted, right? That resonance kind of gets wasted. Try like almost too small. It's really present, but it's a little bit squish sounding. It's a little bit tight sounding. So try to find that space that feels best. Here we go. Shifting into your chest register, that's fine. Okay, one more that we're going to do is we're going to oo to o. We're going to stick with these vowels mostly today for our shaping. Holding on to that air, finding that vertical stretch. Oos and O's help us find a kind of tall, narrow vertical stretch that's really helpful for keeping tension out of our throat and finding this backspace that helps us contain that air. So we're going to do octave slides. I think of these as kind of like a slide whistle. You could also think of this like a stretching rubber band. And we're going to go from oo to o. We're going to try not to open too much on the o, holding on to the good kind of snugness that we're finding on the oo. We're going to touch on the top note and spring right back down. So it'll be ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, so we'll do it a few times on each pitch. Maybe notice a couple. Notice a few things? This verticality, this stretchiness in the back. So think maybe up and down, kind of sensations. Maybe think depth. Can you find a sense of stretch towards the back of your throat? Maybe also think height, going back to that dome, lifting off of the tongue, to keep your tongue from helping you. Okay, here we go. Starting on middle C for ladies, the C below for gentlemen. Here we go. New preparatory breath. One more time on this pitch. Here we go, one more time. We're going to jump up a third to F. Lips rounded. A little bit higher. Really slide up and down this octave. Notice where you want to feel the stretch as we climb higher. Notice as we climb higher and higher how that stretch is going to maybe feel a little bit more stretchy. The depth of the stretch might feel further back. We're going to have to contain our air even more so we don't push on those high notes. So feel like you're almost holding your breath or narrowing in as you climb. So it's going to feel. And you might need to we'll slow these down and try to find an extra stretch back there as we climb higher. Here we go, preparatory breath. One more time, a little slower. Okay, one more. All right. We're going to do one more whole step higher. This is A. Drop out if this is uncomfortable. We're going to just slide right up and slide right back a few times, really stretching. Let's breathe in through the space we think we're going to need on the top note. So for me, it's going to be a much higher breath, a higher stretch in my mouth, a much more open sensation in my throat, like a bigger yawn. And I'm going to make sure I start without too much force or wasting my air. Okay. And your mouth might not be able to hold on to an ooh shape. It might really want to go to ah, and that's okay up here. We're going to try to keep it snug, but if it needs to, that's fine. That is fine. Okay, a couple more times. All right, good job, good job. Okay, that's it for today. Please let me know if you have any questions, and take some risks, experiment, exaggerate, and see how all this feels. All right.